This is going to be something that I think Dr. Johnson sent this out. I don't know if he's going to do anything on this, but since it was sitting here, I decided I was actually going to put this into the record. Dr. Johnson probably would do it more thoroughly than I can because this is his bailiwick. But we're going to give it a shot. Black women's views on black men's high rate of joblessness. Black men are integral to black families, neighborhoods, and communities, but they suffer from joblessness at rates higher than other men. There are about 1 million more employed black women than employed black men. Among ethnic and racial groups in the United States, there are substantially more employed black men than employed women. Most black women also believe that increasing black men's job opportunities would increase the stability of black couples and reduce crime. This is something that Moynihan said back in 1965. So a lot of this stuff is coming full circle. There's about 1 million more black employed women than men annually since the year 2000. And that is not a mystery because there's a couple things. Black men go to jail more than black women. That's going to show up later in the text. And also, there's about 2.5 million more black women, adult black women, than there are black men. Black men, there's a separation in black men starting out about age, I think it's 32, 33. Well, the separation starts earlier. The separation really starts at teenage, about 14, 15 years old. And it gets wider. But I think when you get to the working age, the prime working age, which is between the ages of like 30 and 50, just in population. That's including men that are in prison. Only in the black population are there fewer employed men than women. You notice for every other sector, I think Latinos have the most. For every 100 women, there's 143 Latino working men. 117, 115, 15%, 17%, 14%. Black people, the same thing with marriage, right? I think marriage and population reflect the same. With the black employment versus female employment numbers is almost the same as black marriage and black divorces. It's upside down. Like my mentor, she always says, black men and women in reverse order of nature. Among black adults since 2000 has been an average of 87 employed black men for every 100 employed black women each year. Even though black men have somewhat higher employment rate than black women, there are two major reasons for this. First of all, the black sex ratio is very female biased, is something we said, among non-early and non-institutionalized black adults. There have been about 85 men for every 100 women since 2000. Second, black men are much more likely to be excluded from employment than other black men. There's also going to be more unemployed black men than black women. The only reason that black men have a higher average earnings is because black men make more. But like Dr. Johnson said, when you actually include the non-working black men versus non-working black women, actually include the whole population, what you find out is actually black men probably make less, 10 to 15% on average less than black women when you include non-working populations. Labor force participation has been declining among working age men of all races, ethnicities since the mid-1950s. This decline has been particularly sharp for black men with high school degrees or less, as noted by economists Patrick Bayer and Curran Kofi Charles. The rate of joblessness for prime age black men doubled from 1960 to 2007 to 2014. Also, the joblessness for less educated urban black men ages 18 to 50 more than doubled from 1960 to 2018. A lot of that because we became more urban than rural. And this is something that the Turner Commission was talking about. These particular guys, less educated urban black men, 18 to 50. Exactly what they were talking about. This is what affirmative action was supposed to alleviate. Most black women are very worried about black men's joblessness rate. 80%, yeah, you notice they are, especially when they need baby daddies. A majority of black mothers worry about their sons being able to find work, worry about the sons finding and keeping jobs. 46%. Moderately, extremely concerned, right? Somewhat, okay? This is what we hear. And this is the Pookie factor. Not worried at all. Don't give a shit. That's pretty high. Black women are also concerned about their brothers finding employment. Among black women with brothers able to work, nearly 2/5, 39%, are extremely, 24% are moderately, and 60% are worried. Now, if you look at this, man, they're not really that worried, right? 38, they're not worried at all. 38% versus 39%, and 22% in the middle. Most black women worry about their husbands, boyfriends, or partners being able to find jobs. Like you said, you got not worried at all. 37. Look at this, man. They really don't give a shit. They try to make it look good. Black women's concerns about black men's employment challenges are well-founded. Black women's concerns are well-founded. Looking back over the last several decades, black men's unemployment rate is typically about twice white men's unemployment rate. Additionally, many jobless black men who are able and willing to work are not captured by official measure of unemployment, which is limited to people who actively look for work in the last 4 weeks. Indeed, it is often the case that most non-institutionalized jobless black men who are able and willing to work are not counted as unemployed. That's very true. If black men under age 55 had the same employment rate as white men in 2022, about 300,000 fewer black men would be counted as unemployed in the official statistics. If black men in this age range had the same employment rate as white men, about 1 million fewer black men would be jobless. Official employment statistics do not include the roughly 365,000 black men serving sentences in state and federal prisons or those living in other institutions. When these men are actually released from prison, it will be very difficult for them to find work because they are formerly incarcerated black men. A 2018 study by the Prison Policy Institute estimates that formerly imprisoned black women and men face steep prison penalties when it comes to finding employment after their release. Because of the societal problem of joblessness for both black men and black women, it is not surprising that more than 4/5 of black women strongly agree, 55%, or agree, 29%, there needs to be more jobs in the black community to black people. Consequences of black male joblessness. Joblessness among black men means greater financial burden on black women than if black men were employed at rates similar to other men. The rate of joblessness means that more black men with children are unable to provide financial support for their children. Black people often provide economic support to relatives. This means that more black women are likely to be providing financial support to the adult black sons, brothers, and other male relatives than would be the case if black men's employment rate was the same as the rate for other groups, something that Moynihan also said. They found that the low rate of upward mobility for African Americans is driven solely by the poor outcomes of men. Check, check, check. As Chetty puts it, addressing the unique challenges faced by black men may ultimately raise the incomes of both black men and women. Improving black men's employment rate is an important element of any strategy to increase wealth and income in the black families and communities that millions of black women and girls live in. In other words, dumb broads, if black boys rocked instead of black girls rocked, then the black community would not be in the condition that it's in. Clark and Moynihan said that back in the 60s, and everybody talked about blame the victim. They said, well, what about the girls? Or what about the women? The thing is, the girls have not moved the needle. Moynihan said that back in the 60s. The girls are not going to move the needle. It's more important for men to have jobs and your sons and your brothers to be put first and them get the jobs first. But our women do not agree. That is why we're still in the same condition that we're in. The math ain't mathing. You keep trying to say that what Moynihan And Kenneth Clark said back in the 60s, in the 50s and 60s, even though they had all the evidence and confirmed by the Kerner Commission, which went out and did the surveys, and repeated by William Julius Wilson and others after that, even by Dr. Johnson and Green Gorilla and Dr. Neal and Dr. Tommy, same thing. Dr. Tommy Kerr all say the same thing, okay? But the thing is that black females and black feminists do not want to give up power. They want to keep compromised males, but that's why your community stays the way it is. The only way for black men to survive in this environment is to be compromised. That's how come so many black men have to hide under the skirts of black women. That's how come you can get all those women clowning and bossing black men. That's how come you have so many pookies. They have all this structure trying to keep black men pinned down on purpose. It's not an accident, including your own women. The reductions in poverty and economic inequality would result from increasing black men's unemployment would likely lead to reductions in crime in black communities. And majority of black women recognize this relationship. They recognize it, but guess what? They don't do nothing about it. And every time you try to do something about it, they stop it. In fact, they encourage it, because a lot of these guys wouldn't do the crimes that they do without encouragement from their women. They wouldn't. Without encouragement from their women, half these guys wouldn't do the shit that they're doing. That's why it's a matriarchy. Conservative analysts regularly argue that if more black people were married, more black people would be better off economically. They repeat this claim while apparently ignoring the body of research indicating that they have cause and effect backward. The research indicates that if more black people were better off economically in the first place, then more black people would marry. Foundation poll found that 74% of black men said it was very or somewhat important to them personally to be married. For white men, the rate was 79%. Now, this keeps coming back over and over again, right? There's virtually no difference about marriage in traditionalism in black men and white men. Virtually no difference. The difference comes in with who? The women. Sociologists Kristen Harknett and Sarah McLanahan conclude that African Americans place a high value on marriage, but undersupply of employed African American men can explain a large portion of racial and ethnic differences in marriage. Clark and Moynihan said that, God, 60 years ago, when nobody does anything, and your women are the first one to stomp on you about advancement. Those who want to boost marriage rates among blacks should focus on improving job opportunities and education for black men. Well, how come all the scholarships and opportunities and programs are for black women? Why is that? If this is the case, and this has been proven over and over again, they're not doing anything except reiterating the same thing that Moynihan, Clark, and Kerner Commission said 60 years ago. Nothing. There's nothing's changed. The majority of black women express some support for this viewpoint. 3/5, 61% of black women expect that black marriages would increase a lot or increase a little if more black men were employed. Get this, here we go. And this has been something that's been going on since freaking Du Bois did it in 1890 when he did the Philadelphia Negro. He found the exact same thing. Nothing has changed. Interestingly, married black women are more likely to see black men's employment as a factor influencing marriage rates. While the majority of both married and never married black women think an increase in black men's employment would contribute to an increase in marriage rates, married black women are more likely to hold this view. Black women believe increasing black men's employment rate helps black women and girls. 80%. 80%, folks. Black men's declining employment rates is part of a broad trend of declining employment for men without college degrees. Part of it. These men have been hurt by U.S. trade policies that have contributed to the decline in manufacturing jobs in the U.S. Black men are more likely to lack college degrees than white men, so relatively more black men have been affected by this decline. Employment in manufacturing sector is disproportionately male, and black and black men even more so than white men relied on these jobs. Very true. But here's the kicker, and note this. Black men have the highest unemployment rates at all education levels. You can see it's obvious. It's doubled everybody else who have less than high school. That's Latinos actually fare better very well with less than high school. In fact, Latinos' rates are pretty similar no matter what the educational level is as far as employment. There's probably a whole bunch of factors for that, right? Well, this is something interesting. Notice this. For a bachelor's degree, the unemployment rate is 3.2% for black men, right? Which is higher than a white man and a Latino with a high school. If you look at it, just look at the Latinos. A black man with a bachelor's degree is virtually the same as a Latino with less than high school, as a high school dropout. High school dropouts for Latinos and whites are in the same ballpark as a black man with a bachelor's degree. It's called racism. And just for a black man to have a shot at employment, he's going to need to have education. And guess what black boys don't get? You guessed it. That's why this shit is so high. And this too. Now, so if one wants to help black boys by helping black women is essential. By nearly all black boys are being raised solely by or in partnership with black women. But it's also important to recognize that helping black men and boys will have positive effects on black women and girls. This is simply because black men and boys are part of black families, neighborhoods, and communities. If black men and boys are doing poorly, then black families and neighborhoods and communities are also going to be doing poorly. Can't say any better than that. There's independent. I don't need no man. I can do it by myself. Negroes ain't ish. It's not going to work. It hasn't worked in 60 years. It has not worked in 60 years. It hasn't. Oh, here's one that I missed. Okay. Most people in prison are eventually released. As a result of mass incarceration, there are many black men who are formerly incarcerated. These men encounter employment discrimination for both being black and for having a criminal record. Research shows that black men with a criminal record are treated worse by employers than a white man with a criminal record. Look at that. Discrimination continues to limit black men's employment opportunities. For all you right-wingers, can you spell racism? Can you spell racism? In other words, and this is something that they said, poverty in the black community means that it directly is parallel to the number of black men working. You cannot have millions and millions, several million black men not working or underemployed and have a thriving black community. It doesn't work that way. Doesn't work that way. So this is something that's not going to go away. Let's go say this is something that's not going to go away. You can't get past the fundamentals. Moynihan, Clark, and all the other brain trusts that tried to look at this about improving the black condition said as much. And then black women allowed white women to take most of the pie of affirmative action without putting up a fight because they were actually going to get a slice and pass off the crumbs to black men, tell them you have to make that do. You have to go pull yourself up by your bootstraps without any boots in a highly competitive environment like the United States, where the slightest advantage is going to be taken advantage of, it's going to boost people up. And as long as black girls were able to get funding and a shortstop and their safety net, they're perfectly willing to either throw the black men under the bus and leave them behind, and then on the back end throw them some crumbs. Your homeless population, you throw your son, your brothers, your father, the old men in the street, throw them some crumbs. You push your black boys through schooling without a proper education, knowing full well what he's going to face as a black child out there in the workforce. You don't care. And the COVID has proven that a lot of black mothers do not care about their children. The national average of black boys that can read at grade level is 10%. And that was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Is there any outcry on college campuses? Is BLM and black feminists that believe in equity and equality saying anything about it? They actually think that it's good because that means they're ahead of black men. 70% of your college campuses between black males and black females is black female. There is no equity. And then they cry about not having their equal. Really what they're crying to is white men to take them. They want white men to feel sorry for them. Look, the men that you gave us aren't up to snuff. Look, we're running circles around the black men that's supposed to be ours, right? The only equivalent to us is you. So you got to marry us, Mr. White Man. We're already having babies for you. 50% of black babies are not sired by black men. You have more black women having out of wedlock babies for white men than marriages. Just white men alone. White men alone have like 400,000 babies with black women. 400,000. I do believe I got to check the figures. Now, don't quote me on this. I got to check the figures. I think the marriages of all sectors of all sectors of black people, all generations of black people, I think is like 120,000 white men that are married to black women. It might be less than that. It may be less than that. I think it's no more than 150,000. But you got 400,000 babies, which that's about the same ratio that you get for black people, okay? Because there's only 27% of black women that are actually married. But anyway, man, I think this has gone on long enough. So I just wanted to put this in the record. I know Dr. J is probably going to do a whole stream on this so he can go into greater detail than I did. I just want to get my thoughts out on this and put this into the record. So without further ado, this is BGS out, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.